those of you not familiar with the League, it is a nonpartisan but political organization which encourages informed and active participation of all citizens in their government, and that's at the local, state, and national level. We influence public policy through education and through advocacy. And one of the reasons we are nonpartisan is so that we can walk in the door of any elected person and explain to them why what we see as the right way to go would be the right way to go. And we were formed immediately after the suffrage movement. Once women had the vote, they needed to be registered, and in many states, the laws were very archaic on what it took to register. I mean, talk about obstacles. There were many. So it was the League's job to go out and get them registered and educate them in civics because they hadn't been. It was considered their minds were only good for homemaking skills. And bringing them to think, yes, I have a place to play in the larger world was a big step the League took, and that's still what we're doing. We've had men members since 1973, so but we didn't change our name, we stayed with our name. We figure when we're moderating a candidate forum, we are educating people about the candidates who seek their vote. And we look at this kind of like, you're applying for a job, and we're deciding if you should get that job. We expect dialogue to be civil and thoughtful, and we intend for our forums to encourage both of those, civil and thoughtful. And so we have 4 candidates with us today. We have in our first seat here, Doug Metcalfe, then Dante Santoni Jr., then Isamac, am I getting it right? I've messed it up a couple times, I apologize.
That's okay.
Isamac, that's right, I didn't put my accent in. Torres-Figueroa and Jess Royer. And the job they're applying for is county commissioner. So let me read that job description. The Board of Commissioners is the chief governing body of the county. There are 3 elected at-large members, and they perform both the executive and legislative functions of county government. They oversee 24 different departments. They serve as the salary board, the retirement fund board, the prison board, and, when they're not running for office, the election board. The term is 4 years. The current annual salary for commissioner is $110,339. And if you're commissioner chair, which they elect after they're elected, you get $113,678. Now, as Democrats, you will be voting for 2 of these 4, and those 2 will be on the fall ballot. Republicans will do likewise, and in November, voters choose 3 of those 4 to serve. So that tells that. And the candidates drew numbers out of a bag to get their speaking order. Our answers are timed at 1 minute, unless I would say otherwise, for a particularly involved question. All candidates answer each question, and they will answer in rotation. They also have 2 rebuttal cards, so they're green cards, and we've gone over the process to use them so they all know what that's about. And I'm thinking there probably won't even be any, but there may be, we'll see. I'm going to ask some basic questions to allow the candidates to introduce themselves, and then we have a group of student questions, and I'll talk about that more later. And you as the audience have also given us questions. All questions must be relevant to the office and may not be addressed to a specific candidate. So I will, if possible, rephrase any question you've written out so it meets those requirements and we get to the gist of the question. And at the end, each candidate will have 1 minute for a closing statement, and I have alerted all of them that if they are concise on their answers, they will get more time for their closing statement. So the first question is, please tell us about yourself and why you are running for county commissioner.
Well, first of all, thank you. Thank you to the Berks Dems for hosting and the League of Women Voters for moderating tonight. Thank you all for being here, and our viewing audience at home, thank you for tuning in as well. My name is Doug Metcalfe. I'm running for county commissioner. A little bit about background. I grew up on a 40-acre farm. My father was a union machinist. My mother was the high school cafeteria cook. I was the first person in my family to go to college. After graduate school, I was a healthcare executive where I managed large departments and programs and services in the healthcare arena. Then I sort of transitioned into the nonprofit world and became a nonprofit manager, again managing large groups of people. I'm running for county commissioner to build a better Berks. I think Berks County is a wonderful place to live, work, and play, but I think there's a lot we could do better. And I think as we go through the night, you'll hear more about that.
Do we want to use the mic or?
Yeah.
Are we using the microphone?
Oh,
Are we using the microphone? Beth,
Yes.
do we need the mic?
You're supposed to be using the microphone.
So I'm supposed to be passing this down?
Yes.
Sorry, I didn't know.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I also want to thank the Berks County Democratic Committee for sponsoring tonight's event, and also want to commend and thank Judith and the League of Women Voters for their work, their nonpartisan work and for monitoring tonight's debate. A little bit about myself. My name is Dante Santoni. Of course, I'm also running for Berks County Commissioner. I served in elected office for many years, from 1992 to 2012. I was a Pennsylvania state representative. I represented Pennsylvania's 126th legislative district, which is now occupied by my good friend Mark Rozzi. After I left that, I did some work for a private firm called Purple Strategies, where I was doing some work for them. Oh, time goes fast. I was doing some work for them in the gaming world. Served as a member of the Pennsylvania Gaming Control Board for 4 years as a commissioner. Been doing some teaching recently, and I want to be commissioner because I think there's a lot of opportunity to make this a much better county, economic development, infrastructure, and I'm sure we'll get into a lot of those questions tonight. Thank you.
I can go ahead and get started. So good evening, everyone. I want to thank you all for being here in person and as well as those who are watching. Most importantly, to our host, Berks Dems, and to the League of Women Voters for having these type of venues, these forums, to be able to better understand the candidates that are running for office. My name is Isamac Torres-Figueroa, and I have decided to run because I see a need for Democrats to have a small business voice, a voice of diversity and a woman's voice, and hopefully 2 votes at the table come November. I've been active in the county for over 25 years. I'm known for my work in higher education, workforce development, small business development, real estate, and as a volunteer at my church and at my youngest daughter's high school. I was selected by former Governor Tom Wolf to represent our county as a Latino Affairs Commissioner. I served in that capacity for almost 8 years, about 7.5 years while our governor was in office. My areas of focus are following. Economic development is key to keeping the county relevant and attract investors, maintain and balance our budget, and more importantly, really talk about supporting and training our workforce for the jobs now and for the jobs of the future. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you for being here. My name is Jess Royer, and I first got involved with county politics in 2019 when I actually ran for county commissioner back then to try and stop the sale of Berksheim, to stop the privatization of the prison, and to protest against the incarceration and detention of families fleeing violence. Since then, we have maintained county ownership of the Heim, we have maintained county control over the prison, and we have seen the shutdown of the detention center. Also since then, my family has grown a little bit. They're watching, so to quote Oaken from Frozen, yoo-hoo, hi family. And what we are focused on this year is a mnemonic device, how you can win democracy. I want to see a county health department. I want to see support for unions. I want to see climate change. We need to fight back against climate change and mitigate the effects of anthropogenic climate change. I want to see less warehouses, that's W. Fewer warehouses in Berks County. We're seeing a lot of open space and woodland going to warehouses, and democracy. As Judith mentioned, the county commissioners serve on the election board. We need strong and fully staffed elections departments and elections, and I want to see, this is something that is an issue for everybody, randomized ballot order in elections instead of pulling out of the lots, because the person at the top gets an advantage. Thank you.
Let's just pass it back to Dante, and can I be heard fine without the microphone? Okay, then let's do that. The second question is a variant of the first. What makes you the best candidate? What do you feel sets you apart?
Well, let me first say that I do think that my 3 opponents are terrific people, and and I wish them the best. Not as much luck as I wish myself, but I do wish them that. I think, again, I mentioned it in my opening comments about my background. The county commissioner, as Judith mentioned, is an executive and legislative position. In my past history in the legislature for 20 years as a state rep, I think positions me well for the legislative aspect of the job, and my time on the Pennsylvania Gaming Control Board, where I was one of 7 commissioners that oversaw a large agency with lots of departments, lots of employees. I think that gives me the opportunity and the foresight to be a good executive. So I think that my background in those 2 areas gives me an advantage to be the next county commissioner, one of the next county commissioners.
I agree with Dante. I think that my fellow opponents are individuals that have the same desire to see our county move forward, and they come a plethora of experience in their backgrounds. But for me, why I think I'm the better choice is because of not only my experience serving in public office. I was part of the Reading School Board of Directors from 2009 to 2013, and as well as state committee person from 2012 to 2015. I'd have to say my background serving in business affiliated organizations, my current role as a business consultant for small businesses, and as well as a part-time licensed realtor. I've been working with folks for many, many years. Prior to my current roles in workforce development, and then as well as in higher education. You know, the impact that I've had on the ground working with the community has been significant for the last 20 years. And I don't take that lightly. But at the end of the day, in order for you to better serve your county, you have to be able to be connecting with the folks, hear them out, and understand what are the issues that need to be moving forward to make the best decisions on behalf of the county.
So since 2019, I've been focused on advocating for unions. I've been focusing on advocating for public institutions, and I don't think there's been anybody who's been a stronger voice than mine on these issues. And I'm also a Spring Township supervisor right now, so I've seen a lot of what the municipalities in this borough, in this county need, and what the residents are asking for, and I take public service as a badge of honor and a privilege. I think that I am lucky to be in public service. By day, I'm a librarian at Reading Public Library. We get a variety of people with various information needs coming in every day. We never know what people are going to ask us for, and I think it's an honor to be able to help people work through whatever it is that they're looking for. And in that position, I'm a member of AFSCME 2763. Our office is downstairs, so thank you all for coming. I feel like we're on home turf here. But again, I take that, it's an honor, it's a privilege that I get to serve as a public employee in both my elected capacity and as a librarian at Reading Public Library.
So what makes you the best candidate? I would say 3 things: experience, electability, and integrity. Berks County is the 9th largest county in the Commonwealth. $660 million budget, employs over 2,000 people. It's one of the largest employers in the county. I have the experience of actually managing large budgets and managing large groups of people, multi-million-dollar budgets, not just approving them. And I think that's one of the things that sets me apart. Electability, I have a proven track record as an openly gay man being elected in a region that voted for Donald Trump, an openly gay Democrat being elected in a region that voted for Donald Trump by 73%. I have been on the only Democrat on a school board of 9 for 8 years. I have that electability. When I ran for state rep in 2018, I raised more money than the incumbent. And last but not least is integrity. I believe in good government practices, and friend or foe will tell you that I am a man of integrity.
Thank you. We're going to start on some of our student questions. These were written by students at both Reading High and Wilson High School. They are thoughtful, they are wide-ranging. Some are not precisely honed to the commissioner's job description, but they focus on issues that the students feel impact the entire county. So you're going to just sort of fudge with them if they're not spot on for the job. It seemed there were 3 themes. Healthcare was one, the economy was another, and the environment was the third. So you want to keep that in mind going door to door in neighborhoods where there are young voters. We're going to start with the environment. With the climate worsening, what can the county do to make Berks a more environmentally friendly place to live?
So Judith, you're saying healthcare, environment, and what was the other one?
The economy.
Economy. And we're starting with environment.
Yeah, with the climate worsening, what can the county do to make Berks a more environmentally friendly place to live?
Those are great questions, and the fact that they're coming from our youth is important, right? Because they're just as much engaged as the regular adult voter. What we can do as a county, I do know that the county takes pride in its parks and its recreation. And in order to do so, to provide that for our residents, we have to make sure that those areas are safe. So what we need to do is be able to work with those experts, with the state organizations and departments to make sure that we, whenever we're talking about warehouses and the proliferation of the warehouses that are happening in the county, there's 3 particular townships that are dealing with that there isn't any environmental impact as it relates to the contamination of soil, as it relates to the traffic, the added traffic on these country roads, as well as any type of air pollution. So being conscious of that is very important. And how we do that is being able to bring all the stakeholders together to talk about when in fact there is development, how does it impact our environment? How are we preserving our land, our air, our water sources to make sure it's there for you when you become of age and become an active member of society?
So one of the really main reasons that I've run for office is to be a part of environmental decisions. Before I was a Spring Township supervisor, I was a part of the Spring Township Zoning Hearing Board. Land use is really important to me. And unfortunately, we see with warehouses, we see a lot of water runoff going into storm sewers. That's a real problem. I want to see, working with municipalities and warehouse developers, if you're going to put a warehouse in, minimize your impact as much as possible. Put solar panels on the roof. Put pervious asphalt around so you can actually see infiltration of water, of rain into the groundwater. I also want to see the electrification of the county fleet of vehicles. I've been calling for this since 2019. Unfortunately, we don't have the votes to do it in spring yet, but that's something I've been advocating for at the local level as well. Another way to get cars off the road is have a stronger bus system and bring the train back. It does seem like we're finally on the right track, if you'll pardon the pun. And I want to be there when the train actually returns to Reading and Berks County. The passenger rail is really important for this area, for economic development, and for opportunities to get in and out of Reading and Berks.
Under environmentally friendly for the county, I think there would be 5 things that I would be focused on. First and foremost would be a sustainability plan. I don't think the county has a plan to look at environmental sustainability going forward. We need a plan. We need somewhere to start. Reduce our carbon footprint. Electric vehicles, like Jess said. Solar panels on our buildings. These are all things that can be done. They could be done today. They could have been done 10 years ago. Ensure the future buildings in the county are environmentally friendly and have a negative look at the carbon footprint of every new building that is being built by the county. Maintain our open spaces and our farmlands. And public transportation. And we need an effective and efficient public transportation that reduces carbon, and we also need to bring in our passenger rail. So those are the things that I would look at.
Thank you. Going last on this issue, a lot of the things have been discussed, and I certainly support the land use, the electric vehicles, all of that. I want to focus, I think, an important issue, and we've been talking about it for a long time, and that's the passenger rail service. I think there's a real opportunity. Of course, we have to work with other counties down the line there near Philadelphia, but I think it's important. It helps with jobs, as was mentioned. It helps with the environment, and I think that that's going to be a focus, hopefully, of the next board to move that forward. I know there's a study that's being performed, and sometimes things get studied to death, but we need to make a real effort to try to get that thing off the ground. I know we're going to need funding. A lot of that funding has to come from the federal government, but we need to work together, local, state, and federal officials to get that off the ground. And I just want to finish by saying that the issue of climate change, I think, is something that's very important to Democrats. And if you look at the young people and where they are on the issue of climate change, I think they're with us, because I think the other party is off the rails when it comes to climate. So we need to keep focused, get the message out, and let people know the importance of what climate means to us and for our future generations, like those kids at Reading and Wilson. Thank you.
No? We got everybody on that, okay.
Yep.
I can go again if you want.
We got another one. More and more housing developments grow in farmland and open land. What can and should Berks County do to protect our agriculture and protect local habitats?
Yeah, and nobody wants to stop the availability of new and modern housing stock. One thing that I think we need to do is develop in a smart manner. I want to see mixed-use development where you can have actually walkable neighborhoods, commercial districts near residential districts, and you can walk to work so that you can actually go places without needing a vehicle. In this country, we're a little bit addicted to our cars, and if we build our new developments and our new neighborhoods in a conscientious manner, we won't need to be dependent on vehicles to get places. I also want to talk about whole home repair, and this might come up a little bit later tonight as well. Whole home repair is a really good way to actually keep people in their existing homes. This is a recently budgeted item at the state level, and it's a really exciting thing to come out of Harrisburg. It will keep people from needing to move out of their homes due to repairs, due to the cost of repairs, and it will actually stop gentrification in terms of keeping well-established communities where they are so that we don't need to see developers coming in and buying out entire blocks and displacing long-term residents.
So I think this is an area where you might suspect there could be conflict between our housing needs and maintaining our open spaces. I would argue that we could do both. Berks County does have a housing crisis. We have aging stock, low inventory, lack of affordable housing. We need to maintain and preserve our farmlands. I grew up on a 40-acre farm. That part of that life is very important to me. We can do both by, I think the mixed use makes a lot of sense, having walkable neighborhoods, but we need to focus on deteriorated areas and revitalize deteriorated areas and not be paving over fields and streams and knocking down trees. So I think all of that can be done by focusing on blighted, deteriorated areas, reinvigorate those areas with new housing that's mixed use, walkable, and environmentally friendly. So it can be done, even though I think some people may say these would conflict, that it doesn't have to be that way. We need to look to the future.
I think from a county perspective, we need to be leaders. I know there's a lot of planning that goes on, but our local governments need some help, and we need to provide them with the resources, working with them to have these sustainable neighborhoods. We do have a crisis with home ownership. I know that I have two daughters that are working and trying to look and find a home, and what the cost of what it is to just to have a down payment is just outrageous. So we need to make sure that we make home ownership affordable, but also do it in a smart and climate-friendly way.
So the question was, how do we address the housing issue without having an impact with regards to our agriculture, our preserved farmland? So as everyone has mentioned, there is a shortage. The county has grown in the last, 20 years. We've had growth, and with that growth comes increased population. So how do you address that? The city, I know, is looking at, with their ordinances, repurposing the actual blighted properties, and as well as possibly rezoning some of the actual older manufacturing or commercial buildings, and looking at getting developers to make them into apartments, something that is definitely sustainable. But outside the city, the challenge is, how do we address those who don't want to live in the city, right? They want to be able to own a home outside. And that is basically intergovernmental cooperation, making sure that we're working with township supervisors and borough supervisors or commissioners to talk about the needs. And it's having a 10-year plan. And this is something that doesn't happen right overnight, because developers of homes, they take at least good 2 years just to be able to get the land approved for housing development. Agriculture. Our agriculture is one of our top industries in the county and as well as in the state. Berks County is doing a lot of great work to be able to preserve with regards to the agriculture, and I'll leave it at that.
Okay, ready for our next question. What is your plan for managing waste in the county? I suppose that could be solid or chemical or any number of things.
Okay. So, unfortunately, Berks County has become sort of the home of landfills. If I think where I live, probably within 10 miles, I can get to 3 quarries and 3 landfills. And we need to stop the proliferation of landfills and bringing all garbage in from everywhere, and find more environmentally friendly ways to deal with it. We need to move to programs that recycle and to reuse, and develop programs that are going to support environmentally friendly practices for waste management.
I would just add that I think it's important to have a recycling initiative. We need to make sure that we get a lot of the things that are going in the landfills, get them out of the system, and work to do what we can to have a countywide, again, leadership. I'm going back to that a lot of times when I say things about what the county commissioners can do. We have departments that we have to rely on, that we work with, and I think that we have to be the leaders in bringing forth this initiative, that we need to make our county cleaner, make it more sustainable, and have a better recycling system.
For me, I think it's twofold. It's making sure that we have programs that we support when it comes to educating schools. Starts pretty much at that level. The homes and the schools talking about how do we go about recycling. I could tell you that I know firsthand from some family members, not every township or borough mandates that they have to recycle all their waste. And that right there is a problem. So a lot of education has to happen. Second is then also looking to our neighboring counties or even possibly states to find out what's happening when it comes to larger communities and how are they handling the waste problem and how are they dealing with waste. I do know that in Coombe Township, their landfill just closed. So our issue is, it's an issue that's happening all over the world. And I think what we need to do is model after programs that are doing well.
Well, I was able to fit into my suit tonight, so I had no problem with my waistline. But as far as the actual waste in the county goes, I once asked our executive director of the Solid Waste Authority, don't you want to have a recycling program come back to Berks County? There used to be a countywide recycling program, and she said no, because people put sofas in it, they put trash in it, they put all sorts of non-recycling items in it. So I would like to see an opt-in countywide recycling program where you say, yes, I'm committed to recycling, I will put actual recyclable materials in, but we also need to think about how we're doing that recycling. A lot of recycling does not actually get recycled. Plastic ends up in the trash. And we should encourage local technology, local development of businesses who can repurpose plastic waste. There are some good development efforts coming out of Berks County. There's some businesses that work on that. I'd like to see more of that so we can actually see some of that plastic get recycled. We also just need to think about it conscientiously in our individual lives and don't waste things. Don't throw things out. If you can still use it again, keep it. And that's a lifestyle change which some people don't really think about, but it's something that we can all do, and it's pretty easy to do.
We're bridging now into healthcare. What can you do to make our local population healthier, such as improved walking trails, which takes us back to the environment?
Well, of course.
We're going to do 30 seconds for this one.
Okay. Walking trails is good. I think there's an opportunity at the county level to get our hands around the healthcare issue. I know that there's a proposal put forth that will sort of set up a healthcare czar, if you will, that will have an opportunity to set the parameters for what we want to do as a county, and I think that's good. I think we don't want to do services that are ready. We don't want to. But we do want to set up an opportunity for people to get healthier, and I think at the county level, if we set up an agency that oversees that, if we're not duplicating services, I think we can move forward.
Speaking about waistlines from earlier, right? How do we stay as a healthy community? Because obesity is on the rise, and there's other health issues that our county is dealing with. So how does the county doesn't necessarily have a direct decision over this, with the exception if we bring back a health department, to be able to address the necessary issues that have to, for example, with obesity, with other issues such as asthma, diabetes. I do know that Berks County has a growing number of folks that would definitely benefit from having a health department. But again, encouraging, as Judith said earlier, with regards to outdoors activities. How do you encourage folks to be outdoors? You just have to, again, education, push that information. A lot of folks don't know what's available to them.
A county health department, Office of Public Health, is something that I've also been calling for several years now. We're approaching 500,000 people in Berks County, and I think it is important that we think critically about how to ensure public health. I mentioned the whole home repairs earlier. One of the repairs that can help people is actually replacing lead pipes. Now, there's a mitigation program for lead paint. We need to see less lead pipes. We need to see less lead in our drinking water. And having a county health department could tie into that. Would also ensure the integrity of our food inspections and generally be committed to and have a budget that is dedicated to ensuring public health among our population here in Berks.
So I would also push for a county health department. Berks County, again, is the 9th largest county in the Commonwealth. If you look at the 10 largest counties in the Commonwealth, we're the only one that does not either have a county or municipal health department. So Berks County needs to get going on that, and quick. The question related to walking trails, I'm a runner. I use the trail system all the time in the county. I think we need to continue to improve outdoor activities, educate people to get outside and use the resources we have. We have beautiful natural resources in this area, and we need to get people outside and take advantage of that.
Okay, how will you address mental health issues in Berks County?
Okay, so mental health, I do know that at the county level right now, the county is looking at, they have, I believe, consultants that they've hired to be able to look at assessing the prison inmates right now, to be able to address the mental health issue that they believe has been one of the reasons why the population inmates is where it's at. I'm a big believer that, especially during the pandemic and even now, this is an issue that our county may have to take a much more active role on as it relates to being able to provide the funding and the resources and the advocacy for mental health. We're seeing it in our community. We're seeing it with the violence that's coming out within our youth. We're seeing it at the national level with folks not being able to deal with whatever it is that they're dealing with because they're not gaining access to the proper assistance. They're not gaining access to the resources that they need. And the county, I believe, needs to be able to make sure that this is an area that is addressed. And again, this goes back to having a county health department.
Indeed, I think a county health department would be a valuable asset in terms of ensuring our mental health. And there are a number of community conversations happening right now around gun violence. And a talking point from, I'll say, the other side of the aisle is that guns aren't the problem, people are the problem. If for a brief nanosecond I would accept the premise, that's something that needs to be addressed. And counterpoint would be, okay, well, if people are the problem, don't give them guns. But as far as mental health goes, we need to have conversations that start at the community level and inform policy. That we need to know what people need, because every mental health crisis and every individual's mental health is different. And it could be a lack of shelter. It could be a lack of food security. It could be a lack of any number of things that we can't address if we don't actually engage with those people and figure out what it is that that person needs. And a county health department could staff counselors, could staff agencies, individuals that are currently provided by agencies. And we rely on nonprofits and we rely on public health efforts that don't come from the county, that don't come from a governmental entity, that I think the county needs to be playing a role in.
So Berks County, just like our nation, is having a mental health crisis, and we need to address that. There are programs and services in the county. I don't think those programs and services are adequate enough or go far enough. For example, crisis care. There are times when both our hospitals in this county are on divert for behavioral health patients because there's nobody to take care of crisis mental health issues in our county. That needs to be addressed. Our prison, I have been told by folks that work in the jail system that is as high as possibly 75% of our prison population are folks that need mental health care. They don't necessarily need to be incarcerated. They need mental health care. Our veterans need to have mental health services on an ongoing and regular basis. They have served their country, they come back, and I see all too often they're neglected, and we need to focus on those folks as well. So there's a lot more we need to do in Berks County to get our hands around the mental health crisis.
I too agree that we are in the midst of a mental health crisis, and I think we should do whatever we have to do as leaders of our community to deal with that issue, helping our schools, because the kids coming out of the pandemic and what happened there and the isolation that we all went through really hurt our young people and their mental health. And as Doug said, the issue in our prisons, I know there's a big issue at the county level with the building of a new prison. But the mental health issue, and I was talking to someone today that deals with that, and most of the new inmates coming in there have mental health issues. Of course, drug and alcohol is also part of it that needs to be addressed. So we have to do really, we're in the middle of a crisis, and when a crisis hits, we need to do whatever we possibly can to address that, take the leadership role in helping our schools, helping our communities, and helping our inmates so that they can get the services that they need so they don't keep going back into jail.
It is hard for single mothers to get child support. What can the county do to help these mothers who struggle to support their families?
Yeah, childcare is extremely expensive, and when somebody needs to also be working to pay for their housing and their food, it makes it really hard to also find a place to put your children. Single mothers in particular are in one of the hardest situations when it comes to this. And I would love to see some sort of universal universal child care program that the county could support, a way to get working mothers who want to be in the workforce and have a place for them to put their kids where they can feel safe during the day and they're confident that their kid is in a good and a place that's going to give them good food during the day, a place that's going to have a secure place for them to stay. It's a hard thing for a new parent, for any parent really, to put their kid somewhere with people that they don't necessarily know all that well and hope that everything's going to go well during the day. So we need to encourage any working mother who wants to be in the workforce and has the ability to provide, that they can have a place to put their children that's safe and secure.
So childcare is a big issue. When we think about economic development, everyone likes to talk about how that's going to generate revenue. That you cannot have successful economic development without the three-legged stool of quality and affordable childcare, efficient and effective public transportation, and affordable housing. So we need quality and affordable childcare. We need programs like the Pre-K Counts program. We need programs that are specifically geared towards helping families who are working, living paycheck to paycheck, to provide the child care they need on a daily basis to allow them to continue to work if that's their desire and keep them in the workforce. We're losing people out of the workforce because child care is so expensive, they choose no longer to work. So we need to really focus on quality, affordable child care throughout the county.
Yes, we should lead again, and I think that the issue of child care is really important. As I said, it's an economic development issue. Two-person households, two people working, it's really hard to find good quality child care. I think we should also work with our state and federal legislators in developing priorities from their aspect, because they can provide the resources and the funding. We can be a clearinghouse for them and send the money down to where it needs to be, but I think with their help providing the funding, we can do a lot more to help with our issue of child care in our community.
I mean, for single mothers, the question I believe was stated, it is very difficult. All the costs of living have gone up, let alone to take care of your child. So although the county may not have a direct assistance for this parent, the BCIU definitely would be able to help in connection with the school district to be able to find out what services. And as Dante mentioned, I agree, is being able to find out what services or resources and funding is available at the state and federal level. As county commissioners, one thing we could definitely do is send letters of support, advocate, and be able to hear out our constituents when in fact there's need for some type of guidance. So I think advocacy and letters of support are definitely one of the things we can do for a single parent looking for child support.
The city of Reading is ranked one of the poorest in Pennsylvania. How would you use your position to bring in more jobs, and this is a student question, but I'm going to add in an audience things, which is good union jobs, improve our infrastructure, improve our transportation, and bring economic stability into the city and our boroughs and our townships?
That's a lot in that question.
Yes, it is.
And a magic wand, and we'd all be there. But I think first and foremost is we have to work together as a county and a city. And until the county and city work together, and we're not going to move forward. The city of Reading is the gem in the county, and we need to bring the city back to its vibrant life. And we also need to work with townships and municipalities across the county. We need to work with our federal partners. There is federal dollars out there. There is state dollars out there for these sort of economic development programs, for these home repair programs, for programs that will revitalize blighted areas. We need to be out there working with our federal, state, and local partners to make that happen. And I'm not seeing leadership on the county side to do that. And that needs to change.
I absolutely think that one of the priorities as a County Board of Commissioners is to work hand in hand with the city of Reading to enhance the viability of the city. I think we all agree in this room anyway that a good, viable, clean, economic developed city is important to the rest of the county. It just doesn't, if a city's not doing well, it just doesn't affect the city. It affects the surrounding counties, and we need to talk to our fellow legislators and commissioners and of the other side, that just because their votes might not come out of the city, it's important to have a city doing well. And I think we need to do whatever we can to work with the city. I live in the West Reading area, and I know that Penn Avenue in West Reading is a great area. There's no reason we can't move all that development across the bridge up the city. I know that there's some great things going on in the city. We should continue to do that, but we need to do more. And I think as county commissioners, I will do everything in my power to work with the mayor and the city council and all the city leaders to bring Reading, to make Reading a great place to live and work again.
So as a county commissioner, the way you address this is in fact working again with those legislative and as well as administrative officials. So working with the city, the mayor, city council, to be able to talk about where we are right now, and as well as the WIB, the Workforce Investment Board. They know firsthand, they're kind of the experts in our county to really track where the jobs are, where are the, the workforce, where there's workforce that's in a sufficient amount, where there's vacancies within the workforce. So working with the WIB to be able to find out what industries do we need to reach out to and attract and bring. But before we can even bring the jobs into Reading, there's a lot of things that we have to address within our hierarchy of life, right? Maslow's hierarchy, which is in order for investors to come in, they want to make sure that the city is working with small businesses and large businesses, that their policies and their processes make sense. Then as well as additional to that is quality of life issues. I think once we address those things within the city, we're going to be able to see more jobs coming in.
Isamac mentioned Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I look at it as really an important part for anybody to feel actualized, and we need to approach it from the individual's level. And we need to make sure that there is available housing for anybody who needs it. At the library, we do see a lot of people who spend time there during the day because they don't have anywhere else to go during the day. But as far as the actual development of the city goes, Reading really is the heart and the heartbeat of Berks County. Our roads come through here. So many of our residents live here in the city. I am very lucky to work and spend my days in the city, but then I go home to the country, and it's a different pace of life, it's a different lifestyle out there. What we need to have is people who can stay in the city, and they don't graduate from RHS and then move away. We don't want people to be leaving. We don't want to see brain drain. We want to see people want to stay here in the city, and we need to make sure that they have opportunities here in the city by encouraging local businesses and local development that will actually entice graduates to stay here and build up our community from the inside.
We're going back for a minute to public transportation, not about trains, but local things. Public transportation facilitates the growth of businesses. It's important not only in urban areas, but rural areas as well, and it benefits the environment. What will you do to increase all modes of public transportation?
Again, it's a matter of priorities, and I think that I would definitely prioritize funding public transportation. Again, I think we need to rely and to work with our federal and state legislators to get the appropriate funding. I think, and to get different policies passed at the state level and the federal level to make it more viable to have public transportation, to give people more opportunities. And I think that, again, working with our federal and state legislators on public policy and on funding, we can do a lot better with our public transportation system right here in Berks County.
I'm really excited about rail coming back to the city and to the county, so that's definitely going to expand our public transportation access and as well as needs. The other area is regional air. You know, really being able to look at where we're at as a county and making sure that our airport is going to be able to have not just air flights to, I think Boscov's in there right now, a couple of times a year down to Florida and back, but actually have it where it's open to the public. Be able to model after Lehigh and other areas in the state. So looking to develop and redevelop our access to public transportation is going to be key. I do know what the county did with regards to the roundabouts on the 222 corridor and some other areas of the county has really helped with the flow of traffic. So these are things, looking at where we can continue to improve access to public transportation. Because why those roundabouts are important? Because you have actual small businesses that are providing public transportation as well as buses that are providing. So looking at where we are at as a community and as a county and really investing the dollars to expand upon public transportation.
When I was in grad school, we had free bus passes. And that's something that our high school students, our college students, our recent grads would absolutely benefit from having access to here in Berks. A bus pass which gets them to work after graduation, gets them to school, gets them to the library after school, gets them to places where they need to go without needing a car, without needing to pay for parking, without needing to figure out what their own transportation plans are going to be. I know in times past, BARDA has said that they don't actually have the capacity right now to support as many riders as the student body in Reading and Berks might actually put on the buses. So the county needs to work with them to make sure they have funding to get enough buses to transport all the students to wherever they need to go. I'm committed to that. I also think it's unconscionable we don't have transportation, public transportation to Kutztown. When Bieber went belly up, there's no bus stop in Kutztown. So we've got DECA, we've got we've got the university, Kutztown University. We've got so many people going from Reading to Kutztown every day. There's mushroom houses in between. There's lots of stops that could really benefit from bus service between here and Kutztown.
As I said before, I think public transportation is vital to economic development. We currently have a situation where 80% of the people that live in the city of Reading work outside of the city of Reading. 80% of the people that are employed in the city of Reading live outside of the city of Reading. There's a lot of people driving back and forth, and we need a better public transportation system. We need to, as Dante said, we need to work with federal and state leaders to get funding. We need improved funding to have a more environmentally friendly public transportation system that is affordable and allows our students access to different parts of the county, provides our seniors access to doctor's appointments and those sort of things. We need to really look at this And it's going to take some additional funding, and we have to work with our funding partners. Much of the county is funded by federal and state dollars, and we need to continue to work for that.
What will you do to make our county more appealing? Would you tear down buildings like the Berkshire Mall to revamp our county and bring more life into our communities? So I think we're talking about repurposing and redevelopment.
How I would be able to make the county more appealing is really talking, again, intergovernmental cooperation, because the decisions as it relates to economic revitalization, redevelopment, really does start at the township or borough end. And being able to meet and talk with those elected officials. For instance, I've been attending the municipal meetings with Imagine Berks. So Imagine Berks has just rolled out their strategic plan for the county. And there they talk about, how can we become a more attractive county for investors? And the only way to do so is being able to have conversations with Spring Township Supervisor like Jesse here and others to be able to understand their plan. We do not, as a county commissioner, have a say-so over the redevelopment of the county and boroughs. But I think having these conversations, having them be a part of the strategic plan, will be able to have a much more vibrant county in the next 5 to 10 years. So intergovernmental cooperation is going to be key to be able to do that.
Yeah, I think intergovernmental cooperation is a really good way to make sure that the county is a good place to live. There are redevelopment authorities, both in the city and the county, that have a role to play in that. But something that's important to me to think about is what kind of jobs are available. As a public employee, I know that my family has benefited from and been able to live a really comfortable life based on my salary, my health care, my position as a public employee at the city of Reading. So I want to see more union jobs, not just public sector jobs, although I think they are very important. I think we need to see union jobs at all levels, and we need to see protection of those jobs so that people who move here, who live here, can stay here. Again, I don't want to see brain drain. I don't want to see people leaving because they don't feel like they have any opportunities to advance in life or to buy a house. I want to see people who can live here and stay here. And as a father, as a husband, I know that I am at my best when my family is happiest. And that's only possible when we have good paying, secure jobs available to us.
So making the county more appealing, I think it goes back to that smart strategic economic development, the revitalization of deteriorated areas, creating safe communities, creating jobs, well-paying jobs, jobs that you can, livable wage jobs. And we have 5 colleges in Berks County. And we're seeing a brain drain because these individuals are not finding Berks County appealing enough to stay after they're educated. And if we revitalize and repurpose and put in some of these mixed-use developments where people can live and shop and take a walk around the neighborhood all in the same area, it's going to attract people to stay and to live here. And we're not going to have this brain drain. And these are all challenges, and again, it does take intergovernmental cooperation to make it happen. But there's certainly work to be done.
Knocking down the Berkshire Mall, that one I would have to think about. I'm not sure, even though they're knocking some parts of the Fairground Square Mall down too. But I mean, I agree with my fellow candidates about cooperating with local governments. I don't know that it's a function of the county to come in and tell the local municipalities how to plan in their community. Obviously, we play a leadership role and we can help, but I think we need to work with those local governments to provide the resources that we might be able to, so that they can provide better resources for their communities. But I think the idea that they can do a better job of land use and planning is something that we should look at. Knocking down malls, let's think about that.
I'm going to give the candidates about a half-minute break to take a sip of water and do a little promo for the league. Second, we have out a new guide to voting, and there are copies on the table in both English and Spanish. And this gives you all the dates for the election, which is nice because if you pick one up, I don't have to say them and waste time doing that. And it has QR codes if you want to register to vote, check your status, request a mail-in or absentee ballot, track your mailed ballot, or you want college student information on whether you should be registering here while you're here or at home, that's there. And it also allows people to change their registration on these sites. So if you know people who are independents and you think they should be drawn into a party, you can encourage them to try it. It has been found in other states where they have open primaries that they get more central candidates. If that appeals to you, you want to bring more people into the party who tend to be independent, or maybe Jesse's an environmentalist, maybe he wants to attract green voters. They can come in and change their registration. It has to be done by May 1st, and then they can vote in the primary. They can change back 30 days later. It's very easy and to do. So it allows you to attract candidates, attract voters into the party for which particular candidate you voted here. And maybe they'll stay Democrats. You never know. They may like what they see. So let's get back to this. We're still on student questions. I guess we're starting with Jesse. What is your stance on building a new prison in Berks County?
Yeah, before I answer that question, I will say, once we get to the general election, I will accept any green voters' votes, gladly. No, as far as building a new prison goes, that was something that was started to be talked about around the time when the former Republican-led board, we still have a Republican-led board, but in 2019 there was a real effort to privatize the prison, to sell it off. And I think that's unconscionable. I think that's immoral. I think privately run prisons are terrible. And the conversation now is around rebuilding our prison. Our prison is literally falling apart. It's leaking. There are crumbling walls. We do need a new prison. Fortunately, what we have seen are falling bed rates. So when we build a new prison, it needs to be a prison that's looking forward, not looking backward. It's going to cost us a lot of money. There was estimates of over $200 million. That's probably higher now that we're in the midst of a bit of a crunch on pricing and construction materials. So I don't think now is the time to go out and sign the paperwork on a new prison, but we are going to need to do that in the near future, and we need to do it wisely and with a mind for the future.
So yes, we do need to build a new prison. We've seen the current and previous county commissioners sort of kick the can down the road on this. And with any deferred maintenance is more expensive maintenance. So the longer we kick it down the can, the more expensive this is going to be. I think the real key is figuring out what we need that prison to be. As I said earlier, probably 75% of the inmates need mental health services. I'm told that Berks County has a very high percentage of folks in the county jail that are pretrial. So let's look at our legal system, let's look at our jail system, and let's build the prison of the future that has a negative carbon footprint, maybe a prison with solar panels on it, environmentally friendly, but right-sized for the needs and the population going forward.
We certainly need to take a look at building the new prison, but we need to do it smartly. The time of just throwing everybody in jail and throwing away the key and saying you're tough on crime, those days are over. I think that people have seen the consequences of that as far as ruined lives, not only, of course, most importantly, but the cost that it has brought upon the taxpayers. So we need to be smart. We need to set up a system where we need to just put our bad people away in prison, but the nonviolent offenders, we need to find help with mental health, we need to find drug and alcohol counseling, and we need to try to do the best we can to keep them out of prison, because it's not only cheaper, but it's better for our community, it's better for the people that have to go through it, and we need to make them viable so they can get back into our workforce and become productive members of our society. So we need to build a new prison, but we need to do it smartly, and we need to do it with a look to the future of how we're dealing with the issue of prisons.
Yes, I also support the building of a new prison because it needs to be a place where the inmates feel, that their rights haven't been violated. Many of us who have been at the meetings or who have talked to people who either work there or who are families of inmates talk about the conditions, and it's in some cases very deplorable. But for me, it's also not only just the budget, but the size. One of the things we have to make sure is that we are not building a mega prison that is going to continue to exacerbate the pipeline population, where we have a lot of our children who, unfortunately, because they're not receiving necessary diagnosis or assistance or support or resources, they find themselves going right to prison. So for me, it's the size, making sure that we are not doubling the size of our prison, but in fact, as was mentioned, addressing the needs of those inmates, and making sure that the prison population is I guess you could say controlled, because we want to be able to assess those individuals that are there. More than 60% are dealing with mental health. Make sure that we're dealing with those issues outside of the prison.
Next question. Local news is very important. What will you do to encourage and incentivize the creation and maintenance of a local press against the unfair competition of national franchises that subsume them rapidly?
It's a great question.
The kids are really smart these days.
They are really smart kids.
Yeah, they are.
Is there any press in the room? So, I do think local press is important. Local press covers stories locally in a different way. I'm not really sure how the county commissioners will improve that or affect that. I'm glad we continue to have a newspaper, we continue to have a TV, with BCTV. There is, the Berks edition of 69 News. So there is local radio. So we do have local media. And I think one of the best ways you support that is, as an individual, you have a subscription to the local paper. You watch the local TV station. You support it through advertising. If you're a business owner, you advertise on there. So I think that's probably one of the best ways that we could support local press.
Yeah, I mean, as a county commissioner, setting a policy on that is we certainly need a free and independent press. It's very important to get to as elected officials. I mean, it's important to have people reporting on what we're doing. I think if you talk to members of Congress or members of the legislature, they would probably not want to have the press snooping into their doings, but it's really important in a democracy to have a free and independent press. As a county commissioner, I think we can just be leaders on that and just enhance, as Doug said, the local paper, the local TV, and if there's any independent, I don't even know if there's really any independent newspapers out there anymore. But as leaders of our community, we can talk about it. But as far as policies are concerned, it's really limited in what we can do.
That's correct. That's really a hard one, because what's happening is that we're living in a digital world. So a lot of the information that we're receiving is more so on a larger scale and not necessarily at the local. I think how we incentivize is going and talking with our local school board directors and as well as our teachers to be able to identify the youth that are really into communications, that are into writing, and find ways to be able to support them so that they become the future journalists. But as Dante said, supporting local and as well as not having our press being kind of outsourced or impacted by folks that are not from the community, they're not from here, that's a challenge. That really is. That's going to be harder and harder as technology advances. So I think, again, it's just having those conversations, maybe having a grant-type program that would help folks to be able, our youth to go back to school and become journalists and come back into the community and be a part of maybe a small business that's starting, all about providing news and what's happening in our community. There's a lot of podcasts out there. There's a lot of independent journalists. So I'm hoping that through this type of program, a grant-based program, that we can actually see that industry not go away.
To me, local press is synonymous with transparency. And I think that it's absolutely imperative that we have local reporters and local coverage of government officials, government doings, government going-ons, because otherwise we have really no record of what our elected officials are doing. And I think anybody who tells you that they know what the local press will look like in 5 or 10 years is either lying to you or themselves or both, because it's changing very rapidly. And I lament what some people call the fall of the Reading Eagle, or the state of the Reading Eagle. I applaud the efforts of the reporters and the staff members who are still at the Reading Eagle. I feel a certain thrill when WFMZ covers events that are here and covers people that I know. When Rob Vaughn said my name on air, I felt really great about myself. That was fun. But it's not something that we can take for granted. And I think what we're seeing now is a transition from what would largely be the newspaper and local TV to social media. As Mac mentioned, podcasts. Social media, people who have a camera, people who are live streaming events, they are essentially local press these days as well.
How will you involve youth in the county government?
Well, I think it's very, very important to get our young people involved in government. I think what we can do is work with, cooperative with our school districts, our 18 plus, our 19 school districts in Berks County, and work with their social studies and their government departments to try to get them involved, get people into the school in a nonpartisan way, of course. But I think as a county commissioner, I think it's imperative that we get our young people involved. They're the future. They have great ideas, as we witnessed, but many of the very difficult questions they threw at us tonight. But I would do everything as a county commissioner in my power to work with our local school districts to get kids involved that really want to get involved in government and public service.
I think one of the things that we can do is going in the schools and actually inviting, just to say, have some of our meetings. There's meetings at the county commissioner that are on the road. Why can't we have our meetings in the school districts? Why can't we have them in their auditoriums to be able to engage our youth into what we're doing at this level that's going to impact their day-to-day life? I think that's definitely something that's out of, I guess, the norm. But in order for us to be able to engage the youth, we're going to have to do that. And not just the ones that are in secondary, that are in the high schools, but as well as in the colleges. I think that's one form that we can do, is take the meetings on the road and then actually invite them to the actual county services building and the ag center so they could see firsthand how meetings take place. I'm going to show they're accessing a lot of the Zoom meetings, but being there in person, it's a different type of dynamic. And then as well as making sure that they understand that this is their forum as well. Yeah, we're the adults, we're the elected officials, we're making decisions, but this is also their house.
Yeah, I think that the youth of today are the adults of tomorrow. And we need to be prepared for them to enter the workforce. We need to be prepared for them to participate in civic institutions and local government. One of the boards that I'm on is the World Affairs Council. And the World Affairs Council has a really strong contingent of youth participants. And what we find is that people, youth, kids, students, want to participate. They are informed. They want to know what's going on. But it's also sometimes easy to not know what's going on. And that could be due to a variety of factors. But the county has a role to play in facilitating the transition of kids and youth from school to adulthood. And I always say, we're not raising children in our family, we're raising human beings. We don't want them to be children forever. So we try and give them experiences that will expose them to the world and prepare them for the world. And I think the county can have almost a reverse job fair kind of effect, where they don't go to the school for a job fair, they host a job fair for juniors and seniors in high school, so they can know what's coming up on the near horizon. They are going to schools and they're actually participating in events so that the local kids, the local youth, can see what the county does and what's going on.
So I'd just like to start by saying that when I presented to the World Affairs Council, I was swarmed by the youth that was there afterwards with amazing questions about my presentation. So it is great. That is a great program, and the youth are involved there. I think, it's the youth of this country that keeps me optimistic and keeps me fighting for the fights that I fight every day. So I sit on the school board at Twin Valley. We have led Berks County in internship programs. We have been at the forefront of that. We have kids in local businesses, high school students in local businesses, healthcare facilities, with judges all across the county. And so I would love to expand that to all of the school districts. I'd love to reach out to all of the colleges and have internship programs. There are so many departments in the county government. There's 2,000 employees, all these amazing departments. Reach out to these youth through their colleges and high schools and invite them in to do internships. Set up a formal internship program. It wouldn't be that hard for the county to do that. And I think that would be a great way to involve youth.
Okay. One of our last student questions. What is the most important thing you want to address if you win? And what is your budget to address that issue?
So for me, the most important issue facing everybody in the world is climate change. I don't think anybody's going to be surprised by that answer. I think it is an existential threat, both to life as we know it and life, period. And where we are in Berks County, we are a little bit insulated in that. We're not along the coastline. We're not experiencing the swings of drought and then rainfall that California is having. We're not getting lake effect snowstorms. We're entirely buried. I actually kind of lament the fact we didn't get any snow this year, which I think is also a function of climate change. But we are seeing the increase in storms, and we are seeing extreme runoff issues. In Spring Township, we have a number of culverts that turn into rivers whenever there's a heavy rainstorm. And we'll sometimes get 2 or 3 heavy rainstorms all within a week or 2 of each other. There was an incident, a couple months back? No, I guess a couple years back, where on Fritztown Road, I couldn't leave my house to go to the township building for a zoning hearing board meeting because all of the bridges around me were flooded out. And it was a one-night thing. The water receded and it went down. But it's something we need to be cognizant of and thinking about. And this is an issue that we need to be prepared to tackle. I don't have an answer for the budget. A lot of money.
But it's good the students were thinking.
Yeah, well.
It's a good question. And this is really hard because there's so many important things. And if you look at my, Building a Better Berks plan and campaign, I have all of these things listed. And it's really hard for me to sort of pick one. I would say mental health is a really big issue that I feel very strongly about. And I think the county needs to do a lot more work on to improve the programs of service. And don't get me wrong, I'm not, there is good work happening today, and I'm not discrediting the good work that's already happening. What I'm saying is there's more work to be done, and we need to improve the programs and the services, and reach out into different areas of the county and different populations. And for the budget, I don't have a budget. I don't have a specific dollar amount that I would give at this point in time.
I think the most important thing for me, just generally, is the economic development of our county. We need to make sure that we have a viable county that provides good jobs, good wages, union jobs, so that we can provide those jobs to the people who live here. I want to keep the young people here as they're coming out of school, looking to start their lives. I think economic development just takes in so many different things. Affordable housing, a viable transportation system, the passenger rail service, I think is going to be a priority of mine if I'm fortunate enough to get elected. And I think that touches a lot of issues there: climate change, transportation, and of course economic development with the creation of many jobs. So I think when people are working, the county is doing well, and we all benefit from that. So my priority would be the economic development aspect of county government.
For me, it would be the workforce training. Right now, the top 2 industry leaders in our county, the ones that are providing the most jobs, are Tower Health and as well as East Penn Manufacturing. So how are we able to make sure that this current workforce has the skills to maintain not only their job, but move into higher paying jobs? And then as well, this workforce is aging. So we're going to have an issue with shortages within certain industries in the next 5 to 10 years. So how do we address the emerging workforce with the necessary skills that they're going to need to be able to take on those jobs? And how does technology play into that? So in order for Berks County to be relevant, to be able to be a county where people want to come, live, work, and play, workforce for me is going to be the top issue. With regards to budget, I do know that the county works in tandem with Workforce Investment Board when it comes to these type of programs. what they're proposing is also part of their Imagine Berks plan. So for me, that would be my first issue.
Thank you. We have another question, but I'm going to make it a yes and no question because we are at a time we need to be wrapping up, and there's still a couple more.
Yes.
So the original question was, what will you do to protect elections and voting rights? I'm going to ask it, yes or no answer. Will you do everything in your power to protect elections and voting rights and make sure it's accessible for every resident of Berks County?
Absolutely. That would be a yes.
Yes.
Of course, that's a yes.
Yes.
Thank you. For our next question, we're going, I guess, with Dante.
Yeah.
What is your opinion on having a county commission form of government versus a home rule charter, which could be a council manager or any other number of things? And let's try to do this in 45 seconds.
Okay.
It's-
We tried to do this many years ago. I don't want to dance on the fence on this one, but I probably will. We did this a long time ago. I think there's ways that we can streamline county government. I know that actually, Judith, you sat on that commission way
I
back
did.
in the day, and I think there were some really good aspects to what we were looking to do. Again, streamline county government is always looking to provide the services people expect at the cost they can afford. Is always something that we can look at. But in a realistic sense, as you know, Judith, that went down in flames. So to try to bring that
Not
back.
in flames.
It went down in
They
flames.
said it would go down in flames, but it was.
Okay, I'm sorry.
just
I
so
remember
we're-
it differently. Anyway, I actually supported it, but I thought it went down in flames. I would,
That was
something to look at in streamlining county government, but to bring that back up, if someone's interested and we have to set up a committee and go forward with that and addressing it and looking at the different issues, I'm all for that. But I think we should have other priorities.
I agree with Dante in the sense that, the support, not sure if we would be able to gain the support to change that form of government, as other counties in our surrounding area are doing. But who's to say? I guess it's up to the people, the voters, if in fact they want to be able to change our form of government. And streamlining those services, you're absolutely right. If there's ways to be able to cut back on our budget overall and the actual legislative part of the county, that's something that we can consider. But our county, the way it's structured right now, I don't see that changing anytime soon, Judith.
My only complaint or concern about the current form of government is the number 3. It's a very small number. As a 5-person board of supervisors in spring, we can have a richer conversation, we can avoid conflicts of interest, and we can avoid sunshine law violations. With a board of 3 commissioners, I think that can be a little bit dicey at times in terms of how you have conversations without running afoul of sunshine law violations. That being said, if the voters of Berks County wanted to switch the form of government and install a county executive, that's something we could explore. I like the hybrid version of this government, though. I like that there is a unique aspect to county governance where you are both the legislative and the executive, and I think it can work. I think it does work largely, but my only concern is that low number of commissioners, that number 3, as opposed to 5 or 7 or more.
Yeah, I do find it interesting. I mean, you go to school board where you have a board of 9 to like township supervisor board of 5, and you get to the county where it has the biggest budget, employs the most people, and you have 3 people on the board. So, I think the sort of the home rule question, it's really, that's a question for the voters. And if there's, if that's a push, I think Lehigh County, has that sort of structure. It's a different structure. It really has to come from the voters. I would support exploring that. I mean, I hear all the time, out knocking on doors, and they're like, why do we elect a coroner? Why do we elect this position? Why isn't that just an appointed position? Why isn't it the most qualified person that we pay to do the job? So, pros and cons, it's up to the people. I would support looking into it.
Okay. And that last question on the commission was from an audience member. So if you have a concern about doing that, you know who you need to talk to.
Will we have closing statements after this question?
Yes, yes you will. Since 2007, the Democrats have only held 1 seat on the Berks County Commissioners. What will you do to get Democrats elected to a second seat on the Board of Commissioners?
It's a great question. I've been working towards electing Democrats for more than 20 years, and what I've been doing individually along with my team is voter registration, voter registration, voter registration. Our numbers have to grow. There was a time when Democrats outpaced in the sense of registered voters compared to the Republican Party. That is not the case anymore. And I think what changed and what shifted was the amount of dollars that was funneled to voter registration drives, awareness, and pretty much programs that help to get folks registered. Even if they were from high school, if they were turning 18, to those that in the actual prison, because a lot of folks were doing some voter registration even in prison. In the senior community, senior homes, that effort has gone away because the dollars have dried up. So unfortunately, we've seen now that shift. So for me, I've been sending out, it's very convenient with the link, pavotes.org. I also have the long form. So we're doing it, and it's a matter of joining efforts and strategy with the actual party to be able to get the numbers up.
When I ran for county commissioner in 2019, I experienced a lot of wins. I listed some of those wins earlier. Unfortunately, I did not get as many votes as my co-candidates in that particular primary race. And yet in the general election that year, I went out and canvassed on my lunch breaks, in the evenings, on weekends, for the two nominees for county commissioner, because it was really important to me to not leave any stone unturned and not leave anything on the table or on the field. I think what we have this year is a really great crop of Democratic candidates. I'd be honored to serve with any of my co-candidates. I'm not calling them competitors or opponents. Co-candidates here at this table. And I think the best way to get two Democrats on the board is to have good candidates, to work for your candidate, and to actually, all be pulling in the same direction. I think we're having a good conversation here tonight. I think we've had a good conversation so far throughout the campaign, and I think that's really important. I think that's important to show the voters that this is something that we can do this year, especially when you look at the endorsed Berks GOP candidates on the other side. They chose the only two of the five that are running that have never been commissioner. I think that's a very interesting strategy, but I think we do have a real opportunity as Democrats this year to retake the board.
2023 is the year to turn Berks blue. We can do it. I think that because of the chaos on the other side in the Republicans, I think we have four great candidates here. I'm willing to work with whoever else gets through the primary to ensure that we get two Dem county commissioners to work up and down the ballot so people like Fred and Winston get elected, and all of the row officers. Democrats had the registration edge in Berks County. We've lost it. It all comes down to turnout. Republicans vote very methodically. We have to get our voters to show up on election day, regardless of the weather, regardless of what's going on, or mail their ballot in. So it takes all of you and all of us to work together. It's a team effort for this to happen, and I'm willing to be part of that team.
I'll do whatever it takes to get the majority back at the county commissioners. I think two Democrats, and again, I agree, I think we have four great candidates here, and it would be an honor to serve with any of them. We need to do the grassroots, absolutely. We need to get our people registered. We need to get young people out to the polls because we know that they'll vote Democratic. We need to make sure that they vote in 2023. And we need to get our message out. We need to message better as Democrats. I think the majority of the people agree with our basic issues that we stand for, not just at the local level, but at the state and federal level, and we need to make that a message that's clear and concise and let people know that Democrats are for climate change. Let Democrats know that we're for union jobs. Let Democrats know that we're for gun safety and issues like that. And I know that we don't have direct say over as county commissioners, but we can talk about those issues and we can make sure that Democrats get that message out so that we become the majority again. Because I think that the majority of the people agree with our position, but we have to message better. And I think we as county commissioner candidates have that responsibility, but you all have to help us too.
I'm going to let you take a minute to get your thoughts in line for your closing statement and mention that this election is not just about county commissioners. We have Supreme, Superior, and Commonwealth Court judges, as well as district justices, We have all the co-op, the county offices that were mentioned, city, borough, and township offices, and school boards. And I think that school boards are probably one of the most critical places that we need information, and that can be hard to find. So in this brochure I talked about, I hope you pick one up, there is a key for vote411.org. Basically, the league runs this in local elections. It's our local league. We contacted all the candidates, including these 4. We gave them a separate link, each one of them, to connect to the website. This is an online voter's guide. And they each put in their information in their own words the way they wanted it written. They could put in their website, they could put in phone numbers, they could put in what they wanted, and it goes directly into that program. And you, as the voter, only need to go to vote411.org and type in your address. And it will pull up every single race on your ballot. The only ones we didn't get in were auditor, and there's another lower township official we didn't get in, but there was just too many to get everybody. But all those school board candidates, if they answer now, Democrats have been really good at answering, so that makes it nice for picking in a primary. We should have those answers for you. But it is safe. It does not keep your address. As soon as it's used the GIS to get you to your ballot, your address is lost, and you will not be put on any email list of any kind. It doesn't track who you are or care. It just gives you that information. And it works all across the country, so please tell friends and relatives. If there is no local league, you may only see the candidates running for a statewide race. But everywhere there is a local league, you should be able to see the local candidates. And I think we invited close to 400 to participate this year. And that's where we'll have all that information. And I think if we have speakers as good as we've had tonight, they will sell themselves. So let's begin with our closing questions. And I think, Isamac, are you up, or is it just?
Yes,
You're up. Oh, well, there we go.
So I want to thank again the League of Women Voters and the Berks Dems for hosting this forum, and to the rest of my co-candidates, as Jesse said, I'll use that, that's a great term. I've gotten to know each and every one of you a little bit more, and I really appreciate that. For me, I need your support, I need your vote, because not only do I have the ability to get the job done, but I have the strategy. I have a team that's been working with me for years. My family and I have been electing Dems, and we are proud to say that we were able to elect our mayor in the city, our 2 state representatives, and I'm looking to Lancaster right now. And the reason I'm looking to Lancaster, that's not only where I met the love of my life, but it's a county that I used to live in before living here, or coming back here, excuse me. And the reason I'm mentioning Lancaster is because a lot of folks know that they have revitalized and redeveloped their downtown city. And I know that we can do the same with a collective and cohesive vision from the county level, from the city level, as well as the state level. If we work towards building a brighter city, it would only have a great effect on the county. So my goal is to be able to model what they've done in Lancaster County and bring that here. That's my goal for you folks. May 16th, Isamac Torres-Figueroa, 4th in the ballot.
Thank you as well to our hosts, our moderators, our attendees, our viewers, our candidates, our teams. Everybody here is really appreciated. I want to say that this is an exciting year. I think Doug is right. I think this is a year that we have a chance to really take 2 seats back. I think it's important that we not lose sight of the role that county commissioners can play. All of the other candidates on the ballot are important as well, though. So definitely talk to your friends, definitely talk to your neighbors, even people you don't like that much, if you think they might vote blue. Try and get them out to the polls. If you think somebody is not registered, ask them and help them get registered to vote. I think that we are definitely on the cusp of doing some good things here in Berks, and I'm excited to be a part of it. I have a website up, voteyesforjess.com, if you want to read more about the campaign or send me some kind of suggestions or criticisms if they're not too bad. We do have a fundraiser coming up at the Reading Phillies, the Fightin' Phils I should say, on April 30th. Tickets are available. You can go on the website for more information for that. Thank you again for everybody sitting here tonight and listening to us, and anybody who's watching on replay as well.
I'd also like to start out by thanking Judith, thank the League of Women Voters, Berks County Dems, all of you for being here. My fellow candidates up here, it's been a fun evening. I do realize it's a contested primary, and it does make a difference to the election who gets through the primary. And like I said before, it's very important that we get 2 good candidates through so we have a chance of flipping the county commissioner this year. I think there's really 3 reasons that I would ask for your vote. First and foremost, I have the skills, experience, and knowledge to hit the ground running day 1 to be your next county commissioner. As I said, it's the 9th largest county in the Commonwealth, $660 million budget, employs 2,000 people. We need someone that is capable to manage that operation and hit the ground running. Second, we need someone that can get elected in the general election. I have a proven track record of winning in tough regions, of working with Dems up and down the board to get people elected. And third is integrity. I'm a principled individual that stands up for my beliefs with undeniable integrity. Ask friend or foe, you will get the same response. My integrity has never been questioned. I'm a fair and honest broker, transparent public servant, open and honest communicator, and I support good government initiatives in answer to the people, not the lobbyists, not the big donors.
I too want to offer my thanks to the Berks County Democratic Party for sponsoring tonight's debate, and also to Judith and the League of Women Voters for the great job that they did in moderating it. I also want to commend the young people at both Reading and Wilson for the great and difficult questions. I think the future is bright there. County Commissioner is a very important and challenging position, and I think that, as I mentioned earlier, my background as a state representative for 20 years positions me well in the legislative end of it. As a commissioner on the Pennsylvania Gaming Control Board helps me on the executive end. So I think that positions me well as I move forward. But just as important and just as exciting for me is the future of what I hope we can do here in Berks County and working with the surrounding communities. Promoting economic development, improving our infrastructure in the county, working with our federal and state legislators to get the resources that we need so that we can provide the resources that people need and the services that they need and want and deserve. My main focus is going to be getting things done. I'm not interested in politics, I'm interested in policies, and I think that with all of you and with the other members of this board, two of us are going to move forward. I think we have a great opportunity to move this county forward. So I would end by respectfully and humbly asking for your vote and your support on Tuesday, May the 16th. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates.